What's everyone? Okay, today we're going to talk about one of the super basic techniques, Age-Uke, how it's used with the wrong attitude, really, because it's not a very good block. If someone's coming at me with a Jodan ski, well, from anywhere, I mean, even with the hands low, the punch is coming here, I'm going to knock that punch up above my head, and that's not something I would risk in a match or in any kind of combat situation. But in Kihon, we start, of course, the block here, and we move forward to the next one. Now you'll notice when I move, what I don't do is stretch this arm up. If you look at three clear-cut aspects of each technique we have, one is a sort of anatomical, technical aspect. Another one is an application in a combat situation. But a further one is what kind of body motion is the technique potentially teaching you? In other words, you could throw away the other two, and simply working on Age-Uke will develop, you know, a certain sense of the body and a certain sense of the extremities, and a sense of what I'm building within my body, what muscle control and limb control I'm building in my body. So, you know, you take just the technical one, yeah, it's all very nice to have a nice shape and nice speed and everything else, so that on its own has some value. And then of course you've got the combat one. Now, they should all, in a perfect world, gel together. And from here, you imagine nothing happening and stepping forward and going like this. We just have a sort of stiff clunkiness. From here, when we start to move, what we want to do, which is not correct, is to do something that's got no purpose. If we have purpose by drawing it down, then of course you can use this to parry down, which is absolutely applicable in combat. I'm very often got my guard fairly wide. If someone's taller than me, I don't want to have my hands below, because then a high punch coming in, you're going to flap it away. Whereas here, anything coming in this area can very easily and quickly be parried down. So you have an extreme version of that. So when you look at that, when something comes Jodan, you parry it down, and of course when you parry, you often want to hit. With Age-Uke, you have this crossing over scenario, which also is kind of a test, because what you don't want to do is cross over with your hands and let your elbows come out. And you know, the low level way of doing would be not just to reach up here, but possibly even go down or go across and swing the arm up. That leads us to touch on the third point about what it's teaching your body. And what it's teaching your body is, you know, really to maintain connection however high you go. In other words, it's going higher and higher and higher, but you don't want to go separate, 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 separate. Or you don't want to, how can I say, lift. Because the ones who do it wrong stretch this arm up and then swing this arm, and it's an obvious sort of lifting motion. Whereas when you're here, there's no lift, there's just connection underneath, connection underneath, connection underneath, seeking to connection on top. So if you look at that closure, surely Age-Uke might be teaching us how high raise the arm, but still keep it part of your body, which would be the same as a punch. We don't want to punch like this. You can hit high, but the movement comes from below. We can even bring our elbow up that high, but we are connecting it. As you can see, that motion here is controlled by all this, which is in turn controlled by your lower back. It's a real bunch of complex things going on. And in a way we want that sometimes in our training, because if we're going to do literally hundreds, if not thousands of repetitions throughout our karate life of Age-Uke, we don't want to keep swinging our arm up as heavily as possible and expect to get some kind of refinement or improvement. At the same time, when we're working on that, obviously you start to work here. If you start working on this, you're going to go on both sides and end up with your arm completely disembodied. That's also no good, of course. It's not going to lead to finesse or refinement. What we want to do is engage the armpits to connect the extremities to the center. So never practice like this, by the way, or even this. You might think, you know, that's what I've been doing. It's absolutely not what I'm doing. This is doing it. Never practice anything without involving the source movement. And the source movement is almost always somewhere around this area. There's the source movement, and you bring it through. When you have the right movement, you know, form will follow function. So it's not too much of a concern. I mean, obviously we want to pan out and look at what we're doing and see it to be recognizably Shotokan, see it to be somewhat conventional and acceptable anywhere you go in the world. So if you go forward doing an age-uke here, no one's really going to complain about it. You know, if you're swinging across and going like this, well, you know, some instructors might let that go, but you know, any instructor worth their salt will start to try and correct it. And this sort of thing becomes a habit, and a really bad habit, because it means that you're going to go to the limbs rather than go to the center. And when you're in trouble, you don't want to go to the limbs because it's going to be chaos. You want to have that form, but it should be way down the list. You want function, and you want the anatomical work that is the reason for us doing thousands of repetitions. Literally, you're building reflex, muscle response. So your muscle response is not out and out, it's in. That's the way you get smoothness. It's also the way you get form, because there is an intangible aspect to form as well. When you're swinging something up and it stops in the right place, there's a superficiality to it. And because there's a superficiality, you will find yourself wanting to perhaps do something like this. So your gi makes a snapping sound, and then you can ignore the, you know, the profound work, and you're on the superficial. Nothing gets more superficial than your dogi, of course. So there's your form and everything else. Application. We need to have application. For me, it's much closer to oizuki than it is to anything else. You bring one arm down, the other one comes out. You bring one arm back, the other one comes. Similar aspects there. But the application of that, of course, is to parry down while you hit, which is exactly what I use all the time. As I mentioned before, I tend to have my guard a little wide and a little high. You can hit with the body, of course, and you can close very, very quickly, which is stronger and quicker than opening. So you close, as you close, you're also closing this side, so the body's in balance. That's a very good thing. As you close and hit, you can make your technique, which for me feels no different than age-uke, where you're here. There's the hit underneath, there's the parry, there's the hit. And so it goes, and then you end up getting something which is very dynamic and purposeful, and your body understands that on a sort of visceral level. The third thing is training the body, and you want to train that body. It's like when you move, you've not only got the parry, not only got potentially a hit, you've also got this work going on in your body, and then from here, as you move, there's your work in your body. You glance around and you say, well, actually the form is also pretty good, but the form is layered because you're moving from the inside. It's sincere. When you make the shape on the outside, I'm afraid it's insincere. So having all those three elements incorporated into one movement is part of the genius of Shotokan Karate, in my opinion. Good luck with your training.